the Weekly Digest, a government information agency program that keeps you informed on what the administration has been doing that will create a better environment for citizens. I encourage you to stay tuned. In this week's presentation for the period March 21 to 27, 2015, historian Dr. Walter Rodney feared death by the PNC. Brother tells Commission of Inquiry. Thousands of Guyanese youth to gain employment with opening of Qualfund's campus. Guyana closer to expanding rice exports, taps into non-traditional markets, and opposition's claim Marriott's contract sealed before feasibility study debunked. As the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry continued into its 9th session, Donald Rodney, the brother of the late historian, completed his testimony and cross-examination, maintaining that his brother feared death by the People's National Congress. His testimony was followed by that of the sister of the main suspect, Gregory Smith.
With the continuation of the Rodney Commission of Inquiry, Donald Rodney was bombarded with questions during his cross-examination by Basil Williams, representing the PNC's interests. Williams was referring to Guyana's only case of a deadly bomb blast in the nation's history, when a bomb disguised as a communications device exploded in the lap of Dr. Walter Rodney, killing him as he sat in his car on Friday, June 13, 1980 in Georgetown.
No, but I'm asking a question now. When you give him your passport for him to use to travel, you are in fact agreeing to an unlawful enterprise.
I was taking part, I believe, in something that was legitimately against the dictatorship.
Well, don't go and kill anybody and say you believe it's legitimate, though. No,
I wouldn't.
Donald Rodney is the only eyewitness to the bomb blast that killed his brother 34 years ago. Meanwhile, Ann Wagner, sister of Gregory Smith, who was accused of killing Dr. Rodney, also took the stand. She claimed that the Working People's Alliance and its leader, Dr. Rodney, had infiltrated every aspect of the government of the People's National Congress. She also sought to clear his name as the killer of Dr. Rodney.
Is there any reason why, in light of the direct questions you were asked about who contributed to the book, that you did not indicate that Chapter 7 was authored by someone else? Six, I beg your pardon.
Page 70.
I can answer that question.
That's her answer. I can't answer that question.
You
Because
can't answer the question.
the thing is, how it was put to me, and I didn't even realize that, because I know how I did the book. I interviewed people and I put information, but I put those things together in chronological order.
Dr. Walter Rodney, a Guyanese political activist and intellectual, died on June 30, 1980, following an explosion in his car. He is believed to have been murdered and had written several books prior to his untimely demise. The COI, among other things, will inquire who or what was responsible for the explosion that led to Dr. Rodney's death, whether it was an accident or an act of terrorism, and the role of some persons and agencies, if any, in his death.
Qualfund, a giant in the telecommunications industry, has now paved the way for thousands of local youth to gain employment with the opening of their US $12 million Providence East Bank Demerara campus.
With the commission of this new facility, some 6,000 Guyanese on the employment line will be given the opportunity to join this well-established company. During the opening ceremony, which was held on March 26, Finance Minister Dr. Ashni Singh lauded the company for the immense confidence it has shown in the local economy.
I've had the privilege of seeing how your company has established and grown and expanded its footprint in Guyana, and how you've literally transformed lives by employing thousands, literally thousands of Guyanese persons and improving their lives. And I saw a sign coming in there, I don't quite remember the words, but something about best kept secret and improving lives. And it struck me on how appropriate that sign was, because I have seen how persons have walked through your doors, found employment.
The employment openings range from management positions to customer care representatives, while at the same time providing career opportunities and educational development. The minister took the time to remind citizens who will be taking up employment with Qualfund that they will play a significant role in the country's overall development. Meanwhile, Vice President of Qualfund Guyana, Scott Warner, thanked the local employees for their contributions towards making the company registering growth.
I can say that in the last 9 months that I've been here in Guyana, that I have experienced something unique in the workforce here. And this isn't just a gut feeling or, a warm and fuzzy statement, but these things translate into real performance indicators like attrition and absenteeism, quality metrics for our clients. And because of the hard work and the dedication and the work ethic of our employees, we have been able to grow the business here, and the latest milestone of this growth is the launching of this new building.
Qualfund Guyana already has 2 established campuses located at Betverwachten and Sparendam on the east coast of Demerara, which provides employment for hundreds of Guyanese.
Guyana has begun expanding into non-traditional markets as the country moves to source more buyers for its rice. Countries like Belize, Panama, Nicaragua, and Guatemala have been added to the export destinations for Guyana's rice, and currently a larger market in North America. New markets in Central America and Africa are being finalized, with the potential for rice export to exceed 600,000 tons in 2015.
Panama, Guatemala, Nicaragua, these are countries that we never sold rice to before. Small amounts went to Panama, but not much. Nicaragua and Guatemala are entirely new markets for us. Small amounts go to Colombia, to Brazil, and of course Venezuela is one of our major markets today. But last year some of our rice went to Ghana. And because of Ebola, we didn't explore West Africa too much last year. But in fact, one of the constant inquiries for Guyana's rice come from West Africa. But that remains now the next
potential market.
Well, it is our next horizon. And so the opportunity for production, a production increase, is huge.
Guyana is at present negotiating prices and quantities with at least 4 African countries. Draft contracts have been prepared with at least 1 African country, and payment arrangements are being discussed. From a handful of countries that Guyana exported rice to before 2009, Guyana now ships commercial quantities to 32 countries, and by the end of 2015, the number of countries to which Guyana exports its rice and paddy is expected to grow to about 40.
Our first export, just for the history buffs, our first export of rice was 1903. It was 3,000 tons to Trinidad and Tobago. From that time to the 1990s, the market for Guyana's rice was the Caribbean and Europe, and mainly the UK. What we have done now is expand the market destinations for Guyana's rice. We still send rice to Europe. Indeed, last year, about 110,000 tons of rice went to Europe. But the UK is not the largest importer of Guyana's rice.
When the PNC ran the country, the rice industry struggled and export fell to less than 70,000 tons. When the People's Progressive Party Civic took over, export climbed again and reached 200,000 tons for the first time in 1995. Export reached 300,000 tons by 2010 and 500,000 tons in 2014. From the inception, opposition critics have sought to discredit the Mariot project. Recently, a constant critic, Christopher Ram, who claimed the hotel's feasibility study was done only in 2012, has been debunked by Atlantic Hotel Inc.
The first market feasibility study undertaken with regards to the building of the Marriott Hotel was conducted by the Marriott Hotel Group in 2010, according to Atlantic Hotel Incorporated, AHI, which disputed Christopher Ram's claims that the study was only done in 2012.
Since we established Atlantic Hotel Inc., an unremitting message of hostility has flowed from the opposition and from those opposed to the project. All this, despite the transparent process and information provided at each phase of the project's development.
Further, an independent study by a highly reputable international Miami-based firm, HVS Consulting, was also conducted the same year, 2010. Both of the studies were therefore presented before Winston Brassington on behalf of AHI, signing the construction contracts with Shanghai Construction Group, SSG, in October of 2011 for the building of the Marriott Hotel. The HVS study was subsequently updated and presented in October of 2012.
We had a plethora of opposition statements eagerly headlined in our media, all grossly irresponsible and unfounded, claiming, for example, that, I quote, "No feasibility study has been done to support the project," end quote. Another one, quote, "The hotel project is a shady deal for the benefit of the government's friends," end quote. Another quote, open quote, "Marriott is a brazen, corrupt exercise." And then finally, Guyana was never on the radar for a Marriott franchise. It is exactly this avalanche of negative headlines featuring opposition statements so eagerly published in sections of our media.
Despite the typically irresponsible attempts being made by the opposition, the Marriott Hotel is being completed in line with budgetary specifications to the satisfaction of the Marriott International Group standards. It will open to the public on the 16th of April, employing some 230 Guyanese, and aims to be a 5-star hotel boasting 160 rooms and housing and entertainment complex.
Stay tuned. More of the Weekly Digest after the break.
Education is a fundamental building block for human development. 22 years ago, only 32% of our children had access to education. Today, education is accessible to every Guyanese child. Some 1,000 new schools have been built or refurbished throughout the country, and university education has expanded with a new campus in Berbice. The achievement of excellence in education is no longer confined to only students in Georgetown. Now, students from other regions are successfully topping the country and the Caribbean. These achievements and investments in education have brought positive recognition for Guyana and Guyanese everywhere. Our country has achieved the Millennium Development Goal of universal primary education. It is therefore not mere coincidence that education receives the largest allocation of the national budget. This is a demonstration of government's commitment to the development of students by preparing them for the future and helping their dreams become reality. Education, flying the flag of excellence as Guyana blooms.
The Amalia Fault Hydropower project is essential for a vibrant manufacturing sector. Under the flagship of the LCDS, Norway has transferred earnings from its partnership with Guyana, amounting to some $80 million to the Inter-American Development Bank to fund a part of Guyana's equity share in the project. High amongst the priorities will be ensuring the achievement of more affordable and more reliable energy. Government will deliver the Amalia Fault Hydropower project along with all of its attendant benefits. It is expected that there will be an achievement of financial closure and commencement of the construction of this project during 2015. A message from the Government Information Agency. The Community Development Initiative Plan, CDP, under the Amerindian Development Fund, is a project introduced by the PPPC administration to secure livelihood for the Amerindian villages and hinterland communities. Already 25 communities have received $125 million to embark on agriculture, mining and tourism projects, among several others. Additionally, 161 communities are to benefit in the second phase, which will see $1.3 billion being disbursed. A message from the Government Information Agency. Ghana's crime fighting capacity has been boosted tremendously. a state-of-the-art forensic laboratory, the formation of the country's first ever special weapons and tactical SWAT unit, and institutional strengthening are some aspects of the sector's reforms. Capacity building has played an important role as ranks have received training both locally and overseas to effectively deal with various aspects of crime solving. A message from the Government Information Agency.
Customs and Border Control officers have successfully completed a 3-day workshop which was aimed at building capacity in the area of multilateral environmental agreements, MEAs, and their enforcement.
The workshop, which started on Tuesday, was aimed at boosting professionalism and making GRA staff and officers from other related agencies aware of enforcement tactics when dealing with multilateral environmental agreements.
The human aspect of any organization is of utmost importance, and therefore this session seeks to raise awareness in the roles and responsibilities of customs officials and officials of related agencies as it relates to trade and transboundary movements of environmentally sensitive commodities.
CARICOM Secretariat General Counsel Ms. Safia Ali took the time to hail Guyana's efforts in ratifying all the MEAs. In terms of recognition of the MEAs, Ms. Ali said Guyana has been leading by example.
Guyana is to be commended for being one of the few countries in the region to have ratified all of the MEAs to be covered over the 3 days of this workshop. Indeed, Guyana has set an example for the region by being the only CARICOM country so far to ratify 2 relatively new environment agreements, the Nagoya Protocol on Access and Benefit Sharing and the Minamata Convention on Mercury, both of which have trade and border control implications.
To this end, Ms. Ali added that already CARICOM is looking at ways in which they can assist in upgrading the training to include more of the new agreements as more member states continue to sign on. MEAs regulate the cross-border movement of items, substances, and products, mainly in the form of import, export, and re-export. These MEAs are legally binding global accords that seek to address several global environmental issues, which give the frontline custom and border protection officers a very important role of controlling trade across borders and protecting the national and global environment. Guyana is party to a number of these key MEAs that are significant for the sustainable development nationally and globally.
As the government works towards providing better quality of health care to the population, the country's regional health officers and program heads met to discuss challenges to their mandate with specific focus on hinterland areas.
The 2-day meeting, which was held at the Regency Suites, Hatfield Street on March 26 and 27, allowed regional health officers and directors to engage in direct dialogue with program heads whilst reviewing challenges, highlighting achievements, and at the same time engaging in discussions on areas of collaboration. The meeting targeted RHOs from regions 1, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Health Minister Dr. Barry Ramsaran urged the gathering to make full use of the resources provided by government to ensure that patients in the various hinterland areas receive quality health care.
I'm challenging you to recognize that your administration has created the wherewithal to solve many of these problems. I just spoke of the worm problem and the stunting and the wasting up the Rupununi River in the Amerindian villages. And I've shown you that you have all the resources to go there and solve the problem, address the issues of stunting among those Amerindian kids, wasting, and make them more healthy. And at the same time, they would perform better in school.
He said that while there may be many challenges in meeting the demands of the public, since the hinterland areas are the most challenging, RHOs must try their best to meet these expectations and not use the challenges as an excuse for not delivering service. The minister noted that the Ministry of Health has been successful in eliminating certain diseases that would have had a severe economic impact on the lives of citizens. He also congratulated health workers for being a part of the ministry's team in improving the services provided to those in the hinterland regions.
You're not from the coast, you're from the hard areas. You're from the areas of Guyana where things are difficult to get done. So I want to congratulate you for helping us maintain our national standards.
During Cabinet's statutory meeting at the Office of the President on March 24, several issues of national concern were discussed. The media was subsequently briefed on Cabinet's deliberations.
President Donald Ramotar will be joining other CARICOM heads of state for a high-level meeting with President of the United States, Barack Obama, in Jamaica. Head of the Presidential Secretariat, Dr. Roger Luncheon, also pointed out that a memorandum of understanding has been signed with the Chinese company for a pre-feasibility study of a deepwater harbor at the mouth of the Berbice River.
Reinforcing the government resolve, of course, has been the disclosures of President Xi of the People's Republic of China of significant funding, developmental in nature, that were given at the recent CARICOM China Summit in Trinidad, and even subsequently at the BRICS, that is the Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa conference held in our neighboring Brazil.
Dr. Luncheon also indicated that through Carl Greenidge, Guyana was unable to access grants and loans at a low rate in the past. These were being offered by the Inter-American Development Bank, the World Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, India, and China. He pointed to the fact that Greenidge also took the administration to court over the issue.
Cabinet noted that this resort to the courts flew in the face of two realities. The more obvious one is that this has been done and continues to be done by past administrations, executive governments.
The Guyana National Insurance Scheme will soon allocate local offices to verify the over 1 million contributions which have not yet been verified. The HPS noted too that the NIS offices will also produce flyers that identify the year of the unallocated contributions being received by the NIS along with the employer. In this way, one could clearly see that this local office is in receipt of contributions that were not allocated.
And it would also identify who were the employers, not to break a lance with the employer for submitting information that denied the employees, their employees, their rightful contributions, but more importantly, to allow active contributors and pensioners the opportunity to say, I have contributions that I have not been credited for, and here it is, the same year, and the same employer is on this list. I think those contributions are mine.
Finally, 3 more contracts received no objections from Cabinet. They include the emergency docking of the dredge MV Stephen N., the provision of dietary supplies for the dormitory facilities at the Waramadong Secondary School in Region 7, and the procurement of vaccines for the maternal child health program.
And now for perspectives with Dr. Prem Mizir.
A vote for APNU AFC is a vote for the PNC because APNU is the PNC. The AFC has not learned well from history. The AFC fails to acknowledge, whether intentionally or not, that the PNC's track record on the notion of coalition is one that is manipulative and despicable. Reviewing historical records in the 1960s, vis-a-vis exchange of letters between Premier of British Guyana, now Guyana, Dr. Cheddi Jagan, and leader of the PNC, Mr. Forbes Burnham, would substantiate this description of the PNC's track record on the PPP offer of a PPP-PNC coalition at that time. Nowadays, and fairly often to score cheap political points, the AFC component of APNU AFC coalition proudly repeats its slogan that if the coalition for national unity was right under Premier Dr. Cheddi Jagan's leadership in the 1960s, then it is right now. The AFC is correct insofar as Jagan wanted the PPP and the PNC to form a coalition government in the 1960s. But the AFC is wrong in its slogan, and that slogan also is misleading because the PNC leader Burnham rebuffed or rejected Jagan's coalition plea. And so the AFC should tell the Guyanese people about the incorrectness and hypocrisy of its slogan, that if it were right then, it is right now to have this kind of coalition. Dr. Jagan might have thought that it was right then, but Mr. Burnham did not share Dr. Jagan's view on a PPP-PNC coalition, as the letter exchanges in the 1960s between the two leaders evidenced. The AFC today claims that APNU-AFC coalition is right, but do the Guyanese people know whether the PNC standard bearer, Mr. David Granger, share the strategic coalition views of the AFC? Burnham's hee-haw with Jagan's proposal for a coalition and a national government in the 1960s was deceitful, despicable, and manipulative, aided and abetted by the US and British administrations of the 1960s. Burnham and the PNC had no interest in a PPP-PNC coalition or a national government in the 1960s, unless the PPP-PNC coalition would have brought total political power. But the PNC did not need the PPP for gaining power. It had the assistance then of the US and British administrations. And so after the December 1964 elections, the PNC-UF, that is the PNC United Force Coalition, emerged. The coalition was the British colonial government ploy in harmony with US foreign policy, and indeed having Burnham and the PNC's total support to do away with the Jagan government of the 1960s. Subsequently, the PNC unceremoniously dumped the UF in 1968 after illegally fortifying its own power base. And so is the APNU-PNC-AFC coalition a situation of history repeating itself like the PNC-UF coalition of the 1960s? If history is repeating itself as with the PNC-UF coalition of bygone years, then a vote for APNU-AFC is a vote for the PNC. If history is not repeating itself, then AFC is a mere opportunistic appendage to thrust APNU into political power and not to promote national interest. And so a vote for APNU-AFC is again a vote for the PNC. I thank you.
And with those features, we have come to the end of this edition of Weekly Digest. But before we go, here's a repeat of the highlights. Historian Dr. Walter Rodney feared death by the PNC. Brother tells Commissioner of Inquiry. Thousands of Guyanese youth to gain employment with opening of Qualfunds campus. Guyana closer to expanding its rice exports, taps into non-traditional markets. And opposition's claim Marriott's contract sealed before feasibility study debunked. Please note that Weekly Digest and other government information can be found on our website www.gina.gov.gy, or you can send us your comments and suggestions at ginagovgy@gmail.com. Join us again next week as we highlight more of the government's programs and policies that are aimed at enhancing the lives of citizens. I am Shanti Goberdan. Do have a safe week ahead. Goodbye.